Hello everyone and welcome to a wonderful game from the final round of the Aimchess Rapid preliminaries, and it is also one of great importance. Arjun already pretty much qualified, but Anish definitely should not lose if he wants to qualify for the main event. Otherwise someone else might qualify instead of him. Now let's check out the game. It's quite an enjoyable one. Arjun has the white pieces and he opens with pawn to d4. We have knight to f6 by Anish, bishop to f4, and now pawn to d5. We have e3, going again for a sort of a London system setup, pawn to c5, and knight to f3. We have knight to c6, the London system is now fully operational, knight b to d2, and now knight to h5, going after the bishop on f4, so bishop to e5, and now pawn to e6. We have pawn to c4, and now c captures on d4. So all been played before, nothing new here. C captures on d5, we have queen captures on d5, and now bishop to c4, developing with tempo, attacking the black queen, queen back to d8. And now there are two games that reach this position. One is Daniil Dubo versus Levon Aronian, where bishop captures on d4 was played, and the other one is Nihal Sarin versus Bogdan Daniel Deak, where also bishop captures on d4 was played, and both of them ended in a draw. But here Arjun decided to try something else. He plays e captures on d4 instead, and it is now as of move 10 that we have a completely new game. So okay, Anish continues developing, bishop to e7, we have queen to e2, and now Anish castles kingside. And while you might be expecting castles kingside from Arjun, that's exactly the opposite of what he does. He castles queenside. We have bishop to d7, and now king to b1, getting the king away from the c-file. Nice prophylactic move. We have rook to c8, and now bishop back to g3. Now you don't mind, of course, if knight captures on g3, because then h captures and you get a nice open, or rather semi-open file for your rook. And here Anish has a couple of options. He could go for knight to a5, he could attack the bishop, he could reintroduce this knight into the game, maybe shift it over to d5, but he goes for the immediate attack with pawn to b5. A straight out pawn sacrifice just to open up lines in front of the white king. So bishop captures on b5, and now knight to b4, putting pressure on the bishop, also preparing queen to a5 to go after the a2 pawn. So that's why Arjun brings the bishop back, now guards the a2 pawn, and now pawn to e5, another pawn sacrifice by Anish to open up lines towards the white king. Now bishop to f5 is coming with a deadly check. So here knight captures on e5, he accepts the pawn sacrifice, and now bishop to f5 with check. And there's really no good square for the king. I would just okay, Medo just left himself in the room. That never happened. But okay, after bishop to f5, you have to play something. If you play king to c1, that's a problem. Knight captures on a2 is mate in 1, and that's all there is. I think there's a bit of an echo now that Medo opened the door. Let me just close the door. Alright, so obviously that's not going to work, and yes, the bishop is pinned, the bishop cannot capture the knight, so that would be a terrible mistake for Arjun. Also, king to a1 doesn't really help, because then you have knight to c2 check with all sorts of nasty discoveries from the bishop now, like maybe knight captures on d4, winning the queen, and that's just game. So instead, after bishop to f5, we have knight to e4. This is the only reasonable option for Arjun, and now knight to f6, piling up on the knight on e4. We have pawn to f3, defending the knight, and now queen to b6. Anish brings the queen into the attack. We have rook h to e1, getting the rook into the game as well, and now knight f to d5. And all of the pieces are now coming for the white king. And here we have bishop back to b3. Interestingly, in this complete mess of a position, a3 is winning for Arjun, but it's not a move you would play in a position like this, because you have to calculate all sorts of knight to c3 check ideas, with the knight here being pinned by the bishop on f5. And although it doesn't work, it's a bit too much. For example, I can give you one line that starts with a3. If you try something like knight to c3 check, it's okay to capture. And now let's say knight to d5 opens up a discovery here. Queen blocks with queen to b2. Now we're going to play knight captures on c3, fork the king and the rook, and after king to a1, Now you can capture the rook. Knight captures on d1, queen captures on b6, a captures and rook captures on d1, and you would get a position like this, where you have two pieces for the rook, but it's completely crazy stuff. White would be winning here, but you have to find this in a rapid game. Bishop to b3 was played by Arjun, and now Anish gets the option of playing this beautiful rook to c3 move. The rook, of course, cannot be captured. The knight can't move. The knight is still pinned, and if you capture with the b pawn, now knight captures here, captures the white queen. It would still be very tricky. White has a lot of material for that queen, but still. You do not want to play this. So after rook to c3, what Arjun has to do is play knight to c4, go after the black queen this way, and this also guards the a5 square, which is why it's very important. He played knight to d7 instead, attacking the rook and the queen, hoping that the bishop captures, so then the knight will be unpinned and the knight can capture on c3, but this way he allows Anish to bring the queen to a5. So queen to a5 now, with some very nasty ideas of eliminating the defender of the a2 pawn, the bishop on b3, and then just, completely crashing through the position. So now bishop captures on d5, and now before capturing the bishop, Anish plays this rook to c2 move. Idea being that, okay, now we're going to capture the queen. Also, we can capture the pawn on a2 next, the bishop and then the pawn on a2 next, but Arjun doesn't allow it, because whatever he plays loses the game unless he plays queen captures on c2, and that's exactly what he does. So queen captures on c2, knight captures, and now king captures on c2, with bishop captures on d7, and now as the bishop is still hanging, bishop back to b3, and we have this position where Anish has a queen, but Arjun has a knight and a rook for that queen. So it's a really crazy position. Let's see how they play it out. We have bishop to b4 by Anish. You could bring the rook into the game, but it's not all that impressive. The king will just go to b1. So instead he tries bishop to b4 first, puts pressure on the rook here, rook to e3, and now queen to b6. Now not allowing the pawn to start advancing, as the rook on e3 would be hanging. So king to b1, and now pawn to a5. And it seems like Anish did everything now. a4 is coming, a3 is coming. If he can get the pawn to a3, he should be winning this game. So here, knight to c3. And now, okay, the a4 pawn, the a4 square is covered, so you can't play a4 just yet. Rook to c8, bringing the rook into the attack. Knight to d5, now attacking the queen. And now we have bishop to f5 with check. And this is where things started to go wrong for Anish. The way to deal with this position is to go queen to g6 check, as you want your bishop on d7 guarding the a4 square. And now once the king moves, now you strike with a4. And okay, you give up the bishop on b4, but you capture the bishop on b3. And now it seems like this shouldn't be enough because of rook captures on b3, but there's bishop a4 now, and now white will lose a lot of material. So if you don't have rook captures on b3, it's hard to find a move that works. If you play a3, that doesn't really look like something you want to do. It's weakening the king's the queen side, and yeah, it would be great for Anish. However, after knight to d5, bishop to f5 check was played, and now you're just gonna be down a tempo for the rest of the game. King to a1, and now you can't push the pawn. You can't play a4. So here, queen to a7. Anish wants to play it, but now just knight captures on b4. A captures on b4, and now bishop to d6, preparing bishop to c5, cutting off the queen, the rook from the c file, and that's pretty much all the counterplay that Anish had. We have queen to b6, bishop to c5, attacking the queen, and now queen to g6. Here with queen to b8, you can still fight this, but it's very hard to see why, because the bishops here are controlling these squares, so of course you know that the pawn will start marching forward, but after queen to g6, it's just much easier for the pawn to start marching forward. Here we have rook to e7, claiming another square for the white pawn. Now you have these three squares covered, and once the pawn reaches d7, then it's only a matter of a rook check or whatever, depending on what black plays. So, and also the f7 pawn is hanging, so you're just threatening to pick up the queen here. So bishop to e6, Anish blocks this, and now pawn to d5. The pawn starts marching forward, bishop to f5, now pawn to d6, and now you see the problem here. Here, if the queen was on b8 in that position where we said that queen to b8 would be better than queen to g6. You could just pick up the bishop. Now you can't pick up the bishop because you just get checkmated. Rook to e1 will be mate in 1. So here, rook to f8 by Anish. Have to defend the f7 pawn, but now just pawn to d7. And he was in this position on move 38 that Anish Giri resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Whatever you play, you're just gonna lose a lot of material. For example, if h5, it's a matter of just queening the pawn, not much to it. Rook captures, or even better, bishop captures on f7 check. Eliminates all the material from the board and gives white a completely winning position. Now you capture the rook with check. Now if you don't want to give up the queen for free, you play something like queen f8, rook captures, king captures, and now you just finish by grabbing the bishop as well. Check, king g8, and rook captures on f5. That's all there is to it. And if you don't want to do that, you could give up the bishop for the passed pawn, but still rook e captures on d7. Now you're just down too much material. It's 2 bishops and a rook for a queen. That's just not going to work. If, let's say, rook to e8, you can play rook d8, and that's it. If queen c6 guarding the rook, there's even rook 1 to d7, and now the rook is no longer guarded. You can't capture because of checkmate, and here you would just resign. Or you have to give up the queen, and then rook captures. Luckily, after rook d1 check, you have rook to d1, so it's not checkmate, and there's nothing for black to do here. So, of course, Anish saw all of this, and after pawn to d7 on move 38, it was in this position that he resigned the game. So yeah, brilliant stuff by both of them. Brilliant game by Anish. I really enjoyed both of the pawn sacrifices here. The pawn to b5 was really spectacular, just, you know, opening up the files for attack, and then right after that, pawn to e5, giving up that pawn to give bishop to f5 check, and it was just a beautiful attack, something that you know, I just enjoy seeing, and I'm sure you guys do as well. But Arjun just you know, there's that saying, I think Paul Keres maybe said it, or someone, like there's nothing like a good stubborn defense or something like that. But yeah, here Arjun was just able to put up a really stubborn and sturdy defense, and yeah, at some point Anish was just doomed. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Here are the standings and the final 8. So those who qualified for the main event are Young Shistov Duda with 28 points. He wins first place. Then with 27, we have 3 people: Gukesh, Shakhriyar Mamedjarov, and Arjun Erigaisi. Magnus Carlsen in 5th place with 26. Nodirbek Abdusattorov, who was leading the tournament for the first 3 days, on 23. Richard Rapport with 22, and Vidit Gujarati with 21 points. And as you can see, Anish did not qualify because he lost this game to Arjun. Anish dropped to 20 points, or rather he remained on 20 points, and Vidit overtook Anish, and he qualified for the main event. And now Vidit will face the winner, Young Shistov Duda, in the quarterfinals. So others who didn't qualify, so Vincent Keimer, David Anton, Daniel Naroditsky, Hari Krishna, Eric Hansen, Aditya Mittal, and Niels Grandelius. And who will face who in the quarterfinals? Vidit will face Young Shistov Duda, Rapport will face Gukesh, Nodirbek Abdusattorov will face Shakhriyar Mamedjarov, and Magnus Carlsen will face Arjun Erigaisi. So a lot of really interesting matches to check out tomorrow. So yeah, that's the game, and a little bit of info about who's facing who, and who did well, who did not do well. So hope you guys enjoyed that. I would wish a very happy birthday to Danush, and a very happy birthday to Pedrinho. And I would also like to thank Lord of Chess, Anderson Vera, and Torkel Stanquist for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of this fine event until it finishes. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.